Hello and welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Eric, joined once again with
Tim, hi.
bringing you some more Desperate Housewives, starting season two. Tell me all the credits and we'll chat. These are some good episodes. You agree?
They are. They're very. I kind of forgot everything that happened last season. Um,
Totally forgot. Well, I didn't forget last season. I forgot this season though. I was like, I didn't remember a damn thing except for the Applewhite family. I remembered some of that weird shit.
I forgot them moving on the street until I saw these episodes.
hmm
Yeah, and we find out Betty Applewhite. So
Well, remember, she moved in. What was it? I think it's the last episode of the season, or maybe the two. I can't remember
yeah,
exactly
season
when.
or two. Yeah.
Yeah, they introduced her in season one, and Matthew, her son. So they added Richard Burgi and Doug Savant to the credits, so they're officially part of the season because Doug Savant was only guest star last season. Richard Burgi wasn't even in the first episode of the season, so I was surprised he was added to the credits already. And Alfred Woodard, of course, is added to the credits. Um, Notable guest stars: Jolie Fisher is Carrie Fisher's sister. She plays Nina, Lynette's new boss, bitchy boss.
Oh yes, we all have one of those.
And we have Shirley Knight, who plays Bree's mother-in-law. So she died in 2020. Shirley Knight. I forget how old she was. I'm gonna say she was in her 80s. She has 178 acting credits on her IMDb.
Wow.
Big character actor. She was nominated for an Emmy for this performance, and you could see why. I mean, she's great. She also won a couple Emmys for her primetime work, and she acted up until 2015, so 5 years before she died. She also won a Tony. She was a big Broadway girl. Won a Tony in the 70s. She was nominated for some Oscars in the 60s. Her notable soap appearances: she was in One Life to Live in '86 and a show called 30 Something, which is kind of soapy from the '80s, early '90s.
I remember 30 something. I think our parents all watched that. I remember the credits for it when I was younger.
Probably. Yeah, I would watch that now, but I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I wish it were. And also, we have a guest star, Mikad Brooks, who plays Matthew. He's known now in like Supergirl and like the. So the first episode is called Next, which I was confused because I thought like because I'm watching it on my DVDs, so I'm like, does that mean like next episode? Like, is it click on the next menu? So I thought the next menu was going to come up. I hit next, and it was the show. I'm so used to their titles being long as shit. Like they're usually like 10 words long.
Yeah, it's like a sentence normally. Yeah.
So it starts out with Ida Greenberg. Of course, we still have Mary Alice announcing things and saying what's going on. Ida Greenberg's an alcoholic, and she's just drinking all over the place. They show her in like church and everywhere. This actress is great, by the way. I'll look her up for next time. She is in my movie Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and she's great in that.
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
The hotel lady. So it also starts with Susan's story, so it's on you. Mike returns,
All right, so Mike
and
drives by on the street, and he passes Ida Greenberg, who is drinking her. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's whiskey. Who knows? But he drives
a
by
big
her.
bottle.
Yeah, he parks in her driveway. Very big bottle, big handle. He parks in his driveway. He walks into his house, and who does he find? Zach with a gun aimed at him, and Susan staring nervously. And this is a cliffhanger from last season. So he
hmm
walks in. I forget if words are exchanged, but at one point he goes to shoot, I think, Mike, and Susan goes and tackles him. She jumps and tackles him. Then Mike wrestles with him. The gun flies. Susan goes to pick up the gun, and she aims it at Zach and says, "Let go of my boyfriend," about Mike. And all of a sudden, here comes Mike's dog. I think it's Bongo. Bongo, right?
I think it is. Yeah.
Bongo goes and bites her leg, pulling on her jeans. She's like, "No, stop it, Bongo! Stop it, Bongo!" It's typical Susan. Everything can go wrong. Cluster, whatever, magic that she has, and it goes off. It doesn't hit Zach. It doesn't hit Mike. It hits Ida Greenberg's alcohol bottle. She begs God to quench her thirst, to give her a reason to stop drinking. That was her reason. That bottle exploded in her hand. So bad things led to good things. So as they wrestle and the gun goes off, Zach runs out of the house. The next scene, you see Susan and Mike in the hospital, and they're being questioned by the cops, and Julie's there as well. And they're being questioned about what Zach did, what happened. Are you sure it was him? Okay. Mike tried to play it off like Susan was exaggerating what was going on with the story. He played it down. He didn't make it seem as severe as it was. Julie thought it was odd. I think Julie went to go get ice. Mike went out of the room to go talk to the police officer. And Julie overheard Mike saying to the police officer, "Do I have to press charges?" And you're thinking, why does he want to press charges? If you remember the last season, we find out that Deidre's child that Mary Alice and Paul kidnapped is Zach. It's actually his son. And he kind of had about it. But he doesn't really say it right here. But he knows and has suspicions. So he plays it down. Julie hears this and thinks this is weird. We go to the next scene, and Julie and Susan are putting up a security sign that Mike got from some job site. She doesn't actually have the security network, but it's just to deter people. So she's telling Julie to spread the word, blah, blah, blah. And she mentions that Mike is out searching for Zach. And then Julie basically says what she overheard in the hospital about Mike asking the cop if they cannot press charges and kind of downplaying what Susan said. And it turns them going back and forth, and the scene ends. We go to another scene, and Susan is approaching Edie's house. It's being worked on. Remember, Edie's house burned down by Susan. It's being rebuilt. Mike is there doing, I guess, the plumbing and all the, the plumbing throughout the house. And she's going to search for Mike. And Susan and Edie start to have a conversation. She's asking her all questions about what was it like. I know you were a hostage. Did he pistol whip you? Did he hurt you? Was he rough with you? It was kind of comedic because the look on her face, it's like she wanted Susan to be hurt. But she said she really didn't. Susan said it wasn't anything like that. She's talking to Mike. She's asking questions, some of the kidnapping. She says, look, I know you didn't kill Paul, but what happened to him? And he said he let him go. He kind of said like he felt guilty. Just then, Edie comes up with Mike's phone and says, it's a call for you. And I think this is the scene where the police call. And basically they say, we think we found Zach. We need you to identify his body. So they go to the coroner, the county morgue. They go to identify the body. They look really nervous. Susan looks nervous. Mike looks nervous. They pull the sheet back. It is not Zach. It is not Zach at all. Mike goes in a corner, and he looks relieved, but he looks upset. Susan just starts to realize what's going on. And the police officer said, he's sure it's not Zach. And she goes, he held me hostage for 6 hours. Which
I know it's not him.
Like, plus also, they grew up with him since he was a baby. They would know what Zach looks like, right?
It was funny. I was confused too because I'm like, I don't remember Zach dying, and then I was like, oh yeah, okay, because I know he comes back at some point. I don't remember. He's in the credits, even though he's not in any episodes after this one. But
I vaguely remember his storyline. So Susan, she says, "Can we have a moment?" The coroner leaves the room, the police officer leaves the room, and they're left with the body, and it's just her, Mike, and the body, this unknown person. Susan starts to question Mike, and she says, look, I know you need to figure some things out. Mike basically confesses the whole thing about what's going on to Susan and says that what happened with Deidre. He said that Deidre was, his whatever girlfriend and that she was pregnant. Deidre lied and said she had an abortion. She didn't. That they actually had a baby. And then Susan realizes it's Mike's baby, that Zach could be Mike's son. So she says, I'm going to go home. You need to figure some things out. I'm going to go home. I'm going to take a cab home. So Susan leaves. Later, Susan is sitting on Mike's porch. She apologizes for everything. She says, look, I know you need some time. She says this to Mike. I know you need some time. This is all relatively new. And you want to get to know your son if you can. And she said, but that's kind of messed up. Out of all the messed up kids in the world, I can't have Zach in my life. I can't have him in Julie's life. I can't have him around me at all. So she leaves, and you think, did they break up? Did they not break up? We don't know. But she leaves it very emotional.
Gabby finds John in her bed when she gets out of the shower. John wants to be with her. He's thinking like he wants a family with her and the baby and all that. She's like, "Get out of my house! Like, what are you doing?" Like, she was mad at him because he came at the last episode. He came forward at the trial and saw all that mess. So basically ruined her marriage. As of now, even though Carlos ruined his own marriage as he's in jail for for his shit. Gabby visits Carlos in jail. He's ignoring her. She says she loves him. He's like, I want a paternity test. It's the only thing that will help him get over it, I guess. She goes for a paternity test. I guess she wants to steal somebody else's because it's Gabby. I was confused with this because I'm like, just because I guess she just wants a positive test result,
No, he said he wants her to take a paternity test. He
right?
wants to make sure it's his baby and not John's. Because John said, he knew she was pregnant in the last season, the end. But when John came forward in court and said it could be whatever, I think he said it's my baby or whatever. I'm the one that's
Yeah,
not this other guy, the gay guy. So I think he said he wants a paternity test to make sure it's his. So
yeah, but how do you take someone else's?
she said she said to the woman, she's like, "Look, I really don't need a test." She said, "I just need some documentation." And she said, "I know how Photoshop works. I can do it at home."
So she probably changed it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So she takes someone's paternity test, I guess, for it to look real. They didn't show her doing it, but I guess she does.
she took the paper
She,
in the waiting room. The woman was crying in the waiting room, and she
yeah.
consoled. And she took her paper. She's like, "You don't need this. Can I take you to a cup of coffee or a drink?" She takes the paper and puts it in her purse.
um, so Gabby shows that lady's results to Carlos, and he says he wants more. And they talk about how they're not good people, and at least they're still rich. And that's really it with them. They didn't do too much. They're very backburnered in this story. It was mainly like Bree and Susan's show.
Yeah.
So take it away with Bree.
All right. So poor Brie. If anyone remembers last season, Rex died. It was horrible. This episode kind of opened with her waiting, patiently waiting by the phone, staring at a clock, and it's like 10 minutes to 9. And Brie, being the lady she is, would never call anybody, including her neighbors or good friends, before 9 a.m. So she's patiently waiting. So you're watching the episode unfold a bit with Susan and Mike and other people doing their things, and her waiting to call people. So Brie is waiting patiently to call people at 9 a.m. She makes the first phone call, and it's Lynette. Lynette has some things going on, which you'll explain, but she asked if she could borrow a scarf because she's going to her job interview. And she said, "Oh, sure, I will steam, I'll iron it for you. Oh, by the way, I was calling for a reason. Rex had died." And, Lynette's shocked. So I think it's Lynette that tells the girls. But to go forward to more of Bree's story, Rex and Danielle are waiting for Phyllis to come.
Andrew.
Oh,
Rex
yeah.
is dead.
Rex is dead. And we're waiting for Phyllis to come. Basically, it's Rex's mother. And I think this is when I think Lynette, maybe Bree was walking with somebody when this all happened. But she's talking. She said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah." She talked about like some storm coming. You see this cab come around the corner racing, and you see this woman hanging out. The actress she spoke of, it's Rex's mother, hanging out the window. Her name is Phyllis. And she's screaming and wailing, and my poor baby, and my baby, and wailing, hanging out the taxi window. It's
so dramatic.
Yes, very dramatic, very sad, but a little comical. So she comes up, and kind of comedy ensues with this, which is kind of sadness comedy. But she's going through a box of Rex's things, and she hands Daniel, I think, a teddy bear. And she said, "Oh, yes, it was his favorite teddy bear," whenever we're with it. They pulled other things, and they pull out this prep school tie. It's an orange and blue tie. And then she says, "Oh, yes, I saved it from prep school. He loved his prep school. He won't be married in this."
It's a terrible tie.
Yeah, terrible tie. Yes. Bree said no. They argue back and forth a bit about it. She basically said something about, you keep negating everything Rex and I have been through. And then Phyllis basically says something along the lines of, he was happy until he met you. She didn't say it, but she said his happiest times were before college. Phyllis kind of insinuates he was always unhappy with Bree.
Of course.
Yeah, which is very sad. And it's like, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law kind of battle. It always happens. I feel like everyone we know that's ever got married, there's always that battle, and it
Yeah.
happened. It's sad.
And we don't really know how close Rex was with Phyllis either. I mean, they didn't even like mention her in the first season, so
No,
I'm
no.
assuming they weren't tight.
So Bree basically goes at one point to go visit Betty Applewhite, and she brings over a typical basket, a gift of some sort. Maybe it's muffins, I forget. She goes with Danielle, and she asks her, she says, "I've been meaning to come over, but I've had some things come up." And Betty says, "I'm so sorry for your husband passing." She says, "Thank you." She said, "On that note, our organist is out of town. I heard you're a concert pianist, a world acclaimed concert pianist. Would you mind playing at his funeral services?" Betty says yes, she'll definitely do it. And then there's Betty's son makes some comment because he's there as well, and so is Danielle. He makes some comment about my dad died too. When they leave, when Bree and her daughter leave, Betty Applewhite says, "That was very kind of you, but why would you say your father's dead?" And he said, "I want the neighbors to like us." They said, "Oh, honey, you're so clever, but leave the cleverness up to me. Let me tell the story." So we know his father's not dead, but there's this kind of thing, and Betty makes this comment to Bree: "Us widows have to stick together."
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's sad. Um, we go to the next scene. Bree, Phyllis, and the pastor of their church are meeting up to go for the eulogy, and here's another mother-in-law daughter-in-law battle. It's over the eulogy. And basically, they talk about he just needs a few comments, some light quips, things from his life that he enjoyed, some funny moments they can insert into the eulogy. And then Phyllis says, "Well, I was up all night thinking about it." And he said, "Oh, good, you've written some things." She goes, "I have." And he's like, "Oh, wow, is this like 3 pages?" She goes, "No, 15 pages." She was up all night writing 15 pages about her son. Through it, it's nothing about the grandchildren, Rex's and Bree's children, or anything in life with Bree. Everything was pretty much college and before. And that's another dig at Bree about his happiest moments were before Bree. Bree gets in a fight with her in front of the pastor. The pastor says, "Ladies, calm down." And she, I think, mentions here about the tie again. And then basically she gets herself disinvited from the funeral in front of the pastor. And Bree even said to the pastor, "You better defend me. She's making all these horrible comments. You better defend me." And the pastor doesn't. So Bree disinvites her mother-in-law to the funeral.
That was funny.
Yeah. It's a very, very sad moment. Kind of funny, but sad. Later, we go to a scene of Andrew and Danielle are pretty upset. The grandmother's leaving. Basically, Phyllis is leaving. Her bags are packed. Basically, Andrew says this comment that I love. He says, "I'm sure she was a real bitch, Mom, but she's family. That makes her our bitch."
Yeah.
Problem to deal with. She's still our family. We have to deal with it. So at one point, Bree kind of like calms down, and she said that she goes and talks to Phyllis and says, "For 18 years, I tried my best with Rex." And she goes on and on and on. And Phyllis, for a moment, calms down and backs down and is kind to Bree. And then she says, "You can come to the funeral. I want you there, your family." So Phyllis starts, "I need someone to take my bags back upstairs then," and stares at Bree. So we fast forward to the funeral scene. Betty's playing on the organ. It looks like a beautiful funeral scene. Danielle says her goodbyes to her father. Andrew says her goodbyes to her father. Phyllis says goodbye to Rex. And then you see Bree. Bree looks down, and she looks perturbed. And she turns around and looks at Phyllis in the pew. There on Rex's neck is that orange prep school tie.
Orange and green tie.
Yeah, Bree is not having it. She is just pissed. You can see. They go one point. She goes to sit down. They go to close the casket. She starts going up and down the pews, and she's looking at everybody, looking back and forth. And suddenly zooms in on Tom, Lynette and Tom, and she goes, "Give me your tie." And he's like, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "Your tie. Give me your tie." He takes his tie off. She goes right up. She starts to undo the tie. She sits Rex up in the casket. Everyone's looking shocked.
Yeah.
What is shocked at the organ, and then Betty just immediately starts playing again. As soon as she lays down, she starts playing, like, okay, we have to go on. So Bree is pissed. She doesn't walk back to her pew. She walks out of the church. So the service, I don't even think happened. She just leaves. She's like, I'm done.
All right, so Lynette and Tom, he's running the house basically now. She's going back to work. She has an interview. Lynette, Gabby, and Susan meet up, and they talk about like Rex dying. His mom's coming. She comes. She's hysterical, whatever. Lynette meets with Nina, who is Jolie Fisher, Carrie Fisher's sister, for a job. She's kind of bitchy. And she says like something she has to meet up with this other guy or whatever, and plan out another thing. Lynette says she'll work whenever to get away from the house. She don't care, day and night, holidays, weekends, whatever. Anything to get away from her family because now Tom's in charge anyway, so she don't care. Next scene for them is Tom threw his back out. So of course, how can you take care of all these kids when your back's out? So he's on the floor, and Lynette's trying to make him get up. Like get up, get up, get up! Don't do this to me. Like I got a job interview. Like I can't play. She takes Penny with her because he clearly cannot take care of the baby. The boys, I guess, can take care of themselves as much as they can, even though they're monsters.
I think the way you look at it is Penny has a diaper. The boys don't.
Yeah. So she goes to work. She sees this guy Stu is on his phone or whatever, and whatever. She's like, "You look pretty mature. You look like you like kids. You want to take care of my baby while I have this interview, whatever." So while she's interviewing, she has an eye on the baby and Stu, and she sees that Stu just puts the baby on his desk and like starts flirting with this girl. And she's like, she's just watching her baby like almost fall off this desk. So she's like, hold on a minute. While she's interviewing, so she has to interrupt, run, grab the baby, yells at Stu real quick. He comes back. She changes. She's like, well, you can see me multitask. So she sees that she starts changing the baby and telling her what she's going to do with the company and all this stuff, like your computer, website, and all this stuff. Like she can take care of it and whatever. The dude's impressed and hires her on the spot. Next time we see them, that's when we see them at the funeral. Bree asks for Tom's tie. Well, demands Tom's tie, really. And that ends with them pretty much. They do have another thing where Susan tells them all about Mary Alice and Paul at the end. Some other things we should say. It's been a year since Mary Alice's death. We find out Felicia's in the hospital. We don't see her, but she is still around. And clearly, Betty and Matthew are keeping a secret. It ends with Betty and Matthew. She gives them a gun, and she takes the lunch tray. They go down to this basement. It looks like actually like a nice, well done basement. And we see like they put the tray in the room, and she leaves, and you just see like a hand take the juice or whatever liquid
Yep.
is on the tray. So we know something shady's going on there. And I think we are to assume, I assumed it was the dad. I don't know if you're supposed to or not, but just because the conversation she had earlier with Bree.
That's what I assumed
Um,
too. I assumed it was the dad.
yeah.
But I kind of remember the episodes a little bit. It is interesting because you see more of the character. I'll tell you one thing though. We didn't really talk about the walk. We talked about how the girls were walking, and Susan kind of says about Mike being Zach's father and all this stuff. And then she said she knew why Mary Alice killed herself. That's how she opened up with it. And they said, "Wow, you really don't know people." We said we only know them up until their front door. We don't know what goes on behind.
Right.
And that's the whole idea of Desperate Housewives. The very beginning, we kind of had there was everything in front of the front door and everything behind the front door. It's kind of like what happens behind your picket fence. There's what you project to the neighborhood and what actually goes on. So you kind of see
Well,
this.
yeah, that's basically the first season because
Yeah,
everybody didn't know each other's secrets. Remember, like Bree and
yeah,
Gabby were having issues because of it, and
yeah,
all that mess. And now they're all in each other's mess, and that's just how it is.
yeah,
I guess you can only hide things for so long,
yeah.
basically. So the next episode is You Could Drive a Person Crazy. Back to our long titles. It has this Danny Farrell. I forget his name. Farewell. He's a paper boy who ruins shit with his papers. He throws things, whatever he can do that's terrible. The paper ends up there. Um, and it starts out with Susan and the paper boy. Don't they have a battle in the beginning?
So they go on about how obnoxious boys become obnoxious men. Susan goes out to look for a paper, and she just sees the paper way past. She looks out, her paper is not on her driveway. It's in the middle of the street. He dropped it and just kept going. So she goes out. She goes to go get it, and she goes to go get it, and she ends up arguing with um, Carl, her ex-husband, because she goes out to get her paper, and she sees Carl walking out of Edie's house in Edie's robe in just boxers. Robe on, is totally open. He's got boxers on. She walks over to him and makes some comment about, "I can't believe you did this. How dare you with Edie? She's my neighbor, right in front of me on the street, right in front of your daughter. You can't flaunt your sexcapades." She gets into argument with them. They go back and forth, and she gets very heated. And as she's going back, the paper boy comes back on his bike and says, "You owe me money. You have to pay up. My dad said you're a deadbeat, basically. You owe me money worth of paper wages, I guess, delivering the paper."
And Ida's outside too, the drunk,
Too. She got
the
her paper.
neighborhood drunk.
Hers was in the water or something.
Yeah.
So Ida's watching everything. She basically saw what happened with Carl. She sees what's happening with the paper boy. Susan basically says, "You have no idea what's going on with me in my life. Everything's going wrong." And she says, "I promise I will catch up. Now's not the time, Danny." I think was his name, right, Danny?
Yeah, Danny.
Paper boy. So he calls her deadbeat, and he rides off on his bike. She gets pissed off. She throws that paper chancla like a sandal. Well, I'm thinking it's going to hit him in the head. No, it lodges in his wheel, and he flips face forward. The whole back goes up, flips over. He falls face forward into the pavement. And she looks shocked. And she looks, and all of a sudden, Ida Greenberg, she sees Ida Greenberg staring at her. Ida Greenberg looks at her and thumbs up, you know, boy.
Like, so, good shot.
Yeah, it's one of these comedic moments that Susan always has.
Yeah.
Next, we go a scene with Susan and Julie talking about Carl. They're arguing back and forth, and she says, "Mom, it wasn't a one-night stand. He's been staying there a while." And then she makes a comment. They said that, "Well, you're supposed to tell me everything. We're like that, Julie. We share everything." And she goes, "Mom, he was there the night of my birthday party at the karaoke place." So Susan kind of calms down, and then she says, actually, we don't share everything. We share clothes. That's what we share. That's what we're known for." So they kind of end the scene and realizes they've been together longer than she thought. Julie's okay with it. So Susan, I think, is realizing she has to be okay with it for her daughter. We go to the next scene with Susan and Mike, and Mike comes to Susan's door. He says, "Hey, I don't have any pants." Like, he moved back into his house, all of his stuff out. Moved back in his house. She said, "I have a box in the garage. Come on through." He asked some questions, everything else, like, "Where are we?" And she says, "Well, we're not broke," or he says, "We're not broken up, but are we together? Like, where are we?" And she said, "Well, we can do things, but what kind of things? We can go to the movies, we can go jogging, we can go shopping." And then she mentions brunch. He leans in, he kisses her, says brunch should be great. Then basically, he leaves. He leaves a little bit happier. They're not broken up. So we're kind of excited, but they still got some drama going on. Susan eventually goes and talks to Betty, and says that she's asking if she's having some remodeling done, because she keeps hearing all these noises come from her place, like a lot of banging and stuff. She said, "Oh, no, it's Matthew. He's up late at night. And you can actually hear the banging in the background." He's very handy. And then Susan says, "Well, it's at 2 a.m. Just then, Matthew says hello to Susan. Matthew's not inside the house. He's coming back up to the house. So Susan knows something's going on. There's banging in the house, but doesn't know what it is. It's kind of confusing at this point. So we go to another scene, and with Susan again. Susan is, I think, driving, and she sees Edie roller skating. Edie asks all sorts of questions.
In her shorty shorts.
And her shorty shorts, like the bottom of the butt cheek hanging out, cleavage exposed, hair.
The fabulous Nicolette Sheridan, all hot.
I know, looking all hot. So she asked about her and Carl. Basically, Edie's actually innocent in this. Edie says she didn't think anything would happen. And it just happened. It was Carl that came onto her. So Susan, being Susan, throws a little jab at her, and it I don't think she meant anything by it, but she says, "Well, just so you know, he said he's still in love with me, and I told him it would never happen again. I guess that's why he went to you." And they're going back and forth. So, but this is
He
after.
did it the night of the birthday, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But Edie throws back, or Edie said before this, and this is why Susan said this comment. Edie says, "Oh, by the way, Carl said I was the best sex he ever had, bar none." In other words, I'm better than you, Susan. So Susan digs back. I think Susan would have been a little bit more restrained if Edie had not thrown the first punch.
Yeah.
So,
But she can't help herself.
yeah, Edie defends herself, says that comment about the only reason he's with you is because I told him no. He told me he still loved me, and I told him no. That's why he went to you. Susan drives off. She goes up. She's happy at a crosswalk. Kids are crossing the crosswalk with the crossing guards there. And all of a sudden, she sees in her rearview mirror, she sees Edie roller skating, like rollerblading up the street. She's like, oh, crap. Edie says,
she wasn't done with her yet.
yeah, right? Good. I mean, Nicola Sheridan, amazing in this. But Edie pulls up and says, I'm not done with you. They go back and forth. A few comments get said. Edie goes to leave, and she goes behind the car. I think at one point she was going to hold on to the car, and she lets go or something. Susan starts to go. Susan stops, and Susan accidentally hits her car in reverse and backs up over Edie. I think her tibia, right?
Yeah.
So total comical scene here. Susan goes and sends flowers to Edie's house. Carl answers the door and everything. She wants to make sure that Edie got the flowers. Yes, she got the flowers. Yes, she knows you're upset. You drove over her, Susan. You broke her tibia. Susan said she's sorry. I didn't mean it. She made some comments. I want you to be happy. I want everybody to be happy. And that's how their scene kind of ends. It ends with them. She doesn't want evil for Edie. She wants her to be happy.
And even said she cut her finger on the thorns of the roses too. That she said.
That's another funny.
I'm like, it's so funny, the Susan shit that they give her.
I know. And Susan, she always attracts drama. Always. Doesn't even try.
So Lynette sees dishes piling up. Tom says he has a system. Every 2 days he cleans. We see that there's like a fly or two around. Like it looks just gross and nasty. Clearly, Lynette is not pleased with the situation, but she has to deal with it because she's trying to get back to work and whatever. Later on, Lynette comes in. The house is all shitty. There's pizza boxes everywhere. She's like, "Oh, I loaded the dishwasher." Tom's like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that," and then he mentions the system. She gets mad about it. She's like, listen, it's just there's like something in your system, like a flaw in your system. It ain't working. Like, what's going on? She's like laying on the towel. She's like, what's this towel here for? He's like, oh, Penny spit up or whatever. She's like, ew, like I'm laying on spit up. You didn't even change the sheets. Um, they get in this battle. He's like, you're not changing the sheets. You want control of the situation and all this. He starts pulling the sheets. She's pulling the blanket off. She rips the blanket off, pulls the sheet off. He like lays on the bed like flat so she can't change the I'm like, this is such like a child fight. It's so funny.
I know. Yeah.
So she gets pissed off and she goes to the sofa. She's like, fuck you, I'm sleeping on the sofa. She puts on the TV and there's like this mouse rat movie on or whatever, and she gets an idea. And I'm like, oh god. You know where it was going.
Yeah.
So she plants one single rat in the house. Later on, Lynette does have an interaction with Bree, which she'll talk about when you get to it. But she does meet up with Bree and Phyllis at a table in a restaurant. We'll get to that when you get to it. Lynette gets home and Parker's there, and he's like, "Oh, Daddy found a rat." And the house is looking spick and span. She finds out that he smashed the rat with a shovel. And she feels bad for it.
Yeah.
I probably would have felt the same way. She's like, "You killed the rat." Like she was, she didn't want any harm to come to anything, and she goes out to like the trash can to bring the trash out. And she's like, "Listen, I'm sorry that it came to this." She just like says this little prayer for this rat or whatever. It just cracked me up. Um, so yeah, the rat's dead, and Tom is doing what he needs to do now. So Lynette wins, even though it was a sacrifice of a poor rat.
I think it's funny though because she says to the rat in the trash can, she's like, "But your life wasn't a waste. You saved my marriage."
Yeah,
Like,
you see,
yeah, just talking to this dead smushed rat. Yeah,
I died.
yeah.
All right, hit it with Bree
All right.
and
So
Phyllis.
Bree and
Phyllis
Phyllis,
is still around.
she's still around. She's still staying with Bree and the kids. She is out at the dry cleaner. Bree is picking up some items. She's picking up a suit. Phyllis keeps saying about how this is a ridiculous wait. It's taking too long. Um, and it's probably she's just probably impatient in her mental state, whatever. So Bree thanks the dry cleaner that the family knows well, and the dry cleaner gives his condolences to Bree and says, I really liked your husband. I'm so sorry for what happened. Then Phyllis starts to cry. Phyllis takes over, and Phyllis is hysterical. She's crying, my only baby, my life is over. And Bree is appalled that Bree is kind of like how the British are portrayed in movies and TV shows, does not show emotions publicly. Everything's behind closed doors. Everything's in private. Um, so she's not going to show this outpouring of emotion. And Phyllis takes over. Phyllis just, it's hysterics at the dry cleaner. She even turns to people behind them and talks about her son. Just talking about so and so, the dry cleaner. My son died, and she takes over, and Bree is like appalled.
Yeah,
Um,
Bree's like, there's people in line, like we gotta go, and Phyllis
yep.
is like telling the that to all her issues.
But she keeps saying over and over again, Phyllis, my life is over. My son died. And then later you found out she doesn't just have one child, she has multiple children. But she only
Yeah,
knows about Rex.
he's the oldest,
He's the
apparently.
oldest, so he was, I guess, her favorite. But her life is over. Her baby is dead, um, which is sad. So later, Phyllis is on the phone at Bree's house, and she has a heart to heart with someone on the phone. She thanks the person. She hangs up the phone. Bree said, "Who was that?" She goes, "Oh, that was the electrician calling to give their condolences. They were so sorry and they were so kind." And she said, "Maybe they want to call for me." Phyllis basically says about how she's having a hard time. Bree says, "You're taking this like to the next level. You're being dramatic." And she said, "No one's checking up on me. These people are checking up on me, the dry cleaner, the electrician, neighbors." And then Phyllis makes a comment about how unfeeling Bree is, and that Bree is so stoic that no one will go to her to ask how she's feeling because she's so stoic. They do, though, but Phyllis takes it over. She just kind of absorbs
Right.
about her.
Yep.
So they get into a little tiff about that with Rex. Um, Next, we have Bree and Phyllis are arguing about the insurance payout. Something about this is when Lant bumps into them. They're out to lunch. Bree gets off the phone, I think, and says that was the insurance agent. There's a holdup with Rex's will and everything else, and I guess insurance money. And Lynette just happens to walk by, and she asks how Bree is. Again, Phyllis takes over, starts to get hysterical. Bree kind of calms her down and says, "No, no, no." And then Phyllis holds back, and then Phyllis lets it out again. At one point, Lynette's like, "Well, I should let you go." And Bree goes, "No, no, no." And she stands up. She goes right up to Phyllis and wham, smacks her because she's hysterical in the restaurant. It shocks Phyllis, but she
It
kind of
worked.
it worked. She wasn't hysterical. Um,
Well, that's just there awkward. She's like, oh.
and then Bree sits down as if nothing happens and talks about what we order. What are you going to order? I'm going to order blah blah blah. Then we get to a scene where they are. There's a scene where the doctor, I think it's the coroner or cardiologist, whoever Rex was seeing, felt suspicious. So he calls, I guess, the coroner, and he says, "There's something wrong. I need you to do the autopsy. Something doesn't feel right." And he hands the coroner, or I think he handed him, the note that says, "Bree,
No.
forgive you," and it's written from Rex. So we go to another scene that's kind of a little hanger in there, a little cliffhanger
Which
in the
I,
thing.
I guess, I guess he thought Bree was poisoning him. Like I don't think he ever knows what happened. Like so he actually thought it was her.
I think he thought it was her, which is a shame because obviously Rex is dead. He'll never know.
Right.
Maybe he will if there's an afterlife. Maybe he does know. So we
I
go to
feel like
another
he does come back to haunt somebody at some point. I feel like he returns for some reason, but as a ghost or something. I can't remember.
or in dreams or who knows.
Yeah, I could be making that up, but I kind of remember, but it's been years.
So we go to another scene, and Bree and Phyllis are walking the cemetery. They're still mourning. They're both dressed in black. I think Phyllis has some more color on than Bree does. But they're walking with flowers. You kind of hear Phyllis forgets where Rex is buried. And they talk about, right at this moment, they talk about Phyllis's memory lapses over the years, little things she forgot. And then she says, "Oh no, mother, this is where he's buried. He's down this aisle." They go and they visit him. They're talking, and they're going to visit him. And all of a sudden, they see where his plot is. It's someone dug up the grave. They dug up his casket. It's missing. And she's like, "Who would do that?" After the restaurant scene, George pulls up to the house. He says he wants the kidnap to go back a little bit. I'm so sorry, guys. He pulls up to the house. Maybe this can be edited out. George pulls up to the house and he goes to give Bree some flowers. He offers Bree his condolences. He said, "Hey, George, what are you doing here?" She says, "What are you doing here, George?" He says, "I'm here to kidnap you. Grab your purse, get your keys. We're going out. We're going to go bowling. We're going to do this." She's like, "I don't know how to bowl." And basically, he's trying to be nice. We think he is, but we know how George is. We know what he did. She thinks he's being nice, but she says, "I'm not ready yet. I'm just not ready. I appreciate it." He leans in to hug her, and he gives her a really strong hug, and they pan up to a window. Phyllis notices this. So Rex's mother notices George
But
hugging.
Bree actually starts to cry because this is like the first time she's actually,
She lets the tears out. She lets the emotions out.
yeah, yeah, because it's someone that she cares about, is actually caring about her,
Yeah.
and that's what she needed, kind of. But yeah, that shiesty mother-in-law was looking out.
Yeah, just a
I
shame.
remember, and that's heading toward that. Yeah, that's heading toward the last episode, which I think, yeah, because that's the whole reason.
Yeah.
I think she makes a call or whatever.
She does. So Bree and Phyllis, they're arguing, or they're talking about something, another scene in the house, and she says she's off to see the lawyer to go over the will. She says she's sorry to Phyllis for slapping her. She says, "Look, I know we're all in a weird place after Rex's death." And she basically forgives her. She forgives Bree for slapping her. She forgives her. She says it's been difficult for all of us. Bree leaves, and she sees a phone list in the kitchen, and there's all these people's numbers that I guess Bree had a call, and there's the neighbors. And then it has I think the lawyer, and I guess Joe Flannery, it said. Flannery. But
Yeah,
uh, I guess he's the coroner, or maybe he's the
he's
insurance.
either
He's the
yeah
insurance
he's either yeah I think he's the insurance company because
insurance
that would
agent.
make sense.
So she calls. Basically, Phyllis calls and says, "Hi, I'm Phyllis. Blah blah." I said, "I know. I've already spoken to his wife." She says, "Well, I'm his mother, and are you aware that Bree has a boyfriend?" Basically, talks about George, and
Yeah.
their scene ends. It just that's it for them. This episode.
All right, and last but not least, the Gabby. Gabby visits Carlos. He's writing the checks. She doesn't have access to any of the money. We find out. She says something like, "Why are rich men all jerks?" And he's like, "Why are all beautiful women bitches?" Going at it. These Gabby and Carlos still hating on each other. Gabby goes to prison again. Carlos says this guy Richie's going to beat him up if he doesn't give $7,000 to his girlfriend or wife. I forget how he refers to it, but it's only his girlfriend. Gabby says they shouldn't give in to extortion. She's like, "Why don't you just take the beating? You're man enough, you can handle it." he's like, "No, just give the $7,000, whatever." So she agrees. Gabby brings Rita $7,000 in cash. This Rita girl like kind of throws the money on the ground and gets mad. She comes back out. She's like, "Do you know what this is for?" Like, she's like, "It's for a boob job. Like, my man wants me to get bigger boobs." She was like asking how her boobs look, and Gabby's like, "They look all right. They're nice." Um, and then Gabby just like gives her advice and takes the money back. She's like, "Yeah, you should have good self-esteem. You look good as you are. Stand up to your man." Carlos got beat up. In the next visit, Gabby said Rita didn't want the money. She defends Rita's self-esteem and all this stuff, and she shouldn't have to get boobs if she don't want them. Gabby says, me and Rita are similar. We're both controlled by our husbands, even though it was just his boyfriend, but whatever. Or Rich's, whatever. Um, and she's like, I know she feels like she has a little power. She's just like, I want to write the checks now. Hi, Brody. At the Applewhites, there's somebody chained in the basement. We see like this chain being pulled. We're assuming it's the husband. We don't know exactly why, because why would you chain someone in the basement and set it up like a nice little place, like you're gonna live in this spot? Matthew screams down to knock it off. And Betty says, "We don't talk to him. That's a part of his punishment." We're like, "What is going on with this man in the basement?" I almost picture like Sloth from the Goonies. Baby Ruth. Um, so Betty later on is at her therapist, and uh, she talks about her husband or whatever, and he abused her. It says that her baby died. Like she's trying to get a drug. I think it's diazepam. I think they said. I don't remember, but she crunches it up and puts it in the soup for the person in the basement. And that's it with that. So we get little tidbits of this weird storyline going on with Betty. All right, and then the last episode is, or season 2, episode 3 is "You'll Never Get Away from Me." It actually kicks off with Bree and Phyllis.
Okay, so this is where Bree and Phyllis are walking through the cemetery, both still dressed in black, both mourning Rex. Again, Bree is wearing more black. Phyllis is a little bit brighter colors. They're walking with flowers, and they're going to see his gravesite. And they talk about how memory goes, and they sort of pan to Phyllis's memory, moments that she's had in the show, which we just met her this season, but moments where she's forgotten things. She forgot to tell things, she forgot to do things. They've always just blown it off as she's getting older. So she says she forgets where her son's buried. Bree says it's right down here as they're continuing to talk. They're going back and forth, and she says, "Am I a burden?" And it's after Bree says, "How long will you be here for your visit?" Phil says, she goes, "No,
She's
no,
over
it. No, just so we know." Basically for her and the kids, they need to know. They walk a little bit closer, and they're like, "What happened?" They look shocked. You look at Rex's gravesite, and someone dug up the coffin. It's missing. He's being exhumed. So, well, who would do this? I don't understand. And then I think this is where, what was it? This is where Phyllis mentioned something about, oh, the coroner called, and they don't think that he was, that he died of a heart attack. They think he may have been poisoned. And that's when Bree realizes that Phyllis's memory is fully there. Phyllis has just always played her. She's always made her look bad. She always does these things. So remember the last episode, Phyllis called the insurance guy and said, "Are you aware my daughter-in-law has a boyfriend?" So they end right there. We go to a next scene, and they say there's two kinds of people. And you see Phyllis walking through the house. There's those that aren't fully functional before they have their coffee, and there's those that are. You see Phyllis going to Bree's kitchen. She looks a mess, nightgown on. She's going to get coffee. She comes back out. In that time, Bree has packed all of her things, all of Phyllis's bags and all of her garments, and has them down at the door. And basically, she's kicking her out. It's time for Phyllis to go. And
Get the F out.
Yeah, and basically it's because of what she did. She realized she called the insurance company. She's the one that's holding everything up with, Rex's will, with the insurance money. And basically, Bree needs the insurance money. Bree's a stay-at-home mom, so bills aren't getting paid at this point. Yeah, so I know that from when my dad died and grandparents died, the entire estate gets frozen until everything's settled. It could be a few weeks, it could be months. So basically, Phyllis made their life a living hell, and she has in many different ways.
Yeah.
So we go to Bree, Danielle, and Andrew, and she's basically she's telling them that there's why grandmom leave. She said why grandmom left. She said I have some unpleasant news. The police dug up your father. Danielle and Andrew are like, why would they do that? Well, they don't think he died of a heart attack. They think someone poisoned him, and they think I might be a suspect. Danielle's like, well, she looks at her mother, and Bree's like, "You can't possibly think I would poison your father. When you made the bed and you dressed before you took him to the hospital when he was having a heart attack. You knew he was having a heart attack." Andrew says, "No, Mom, I know you didn't do it." And she's like, "Well, thank you, Andrew." He says, "You couldn't do it. You don't have it in you." Basically, he says, she's not a killer. She's not strong enough. Um, and he kind of says that, and that sticks with Bree.
You don't have the guts to do
Yeah,
it. I think he
doesn't
said
have the.
something like that.
So at some point, Bree goes back to the detective, and she says, "Look, I didn't kill my husband," and she says all these things. And he said, "Would you be able to make a statement?" She goes, "I'll make a statement, but I want my son and daughter there to hear it. I want Andrew and Danielle to hear it." So they put her up on a polygraph test and everything else, and they ask her questions about his death. Did you kill him? No. You were separated? Yes. And the polygraph looks fine. They ask questions about, did you date someone when you were separated? And it went up a little bit, not too bad. She says, yes, we were separated. Then they mentioned George's name, and the thing went crazy. They mentioned about, did you and George poison, or were you into it together, whatever? And the thing went crazy. And she's trying to, I'm sorry, I was a little excited. Let me do that again. Ask me again. They ask again, and this is off the charts. It's like a Richter scale. It's huge on the polygraph. So I think they say, "Are you in love with Mr. Williams?" That's George's last name.
Yeah, I
And
think she actually cares about him, I guess.
she does. And in some ways, even if it wasn't a physical relationship, George checked off some boxes. George liked the same things she liked. You know, she liked flowers, she liked art, she liked cooking. George was interested in all that, whether he really was or just for her, but he showed interest. So it may not have been a sexual thing, it could have been an intellectual thing. There's all different kinds of relationships. And I think she realized, well, I actually do care for him on some level. Bree goes to talk to George. She says, "Look, they're starting to think that I killed my husband. They're thinking it was poisoned." And he says, "You wouldn't have done that. I know that's not you. You wouldn't have done that." And this scene, basically, they talk about how when you lie to yourself enough, you believe it. But if you convince others the same lie, you've won, basically. And George says, "Yeah, you didn't kill him." And then she says, "Will you go with me to do this as well? Will you do the lie detector test too, to say the polygraph, to say you didn't kill him?" George very calmly, "Sure, I'll go." And this is where you realize George is a psychopath, because I know that those things, they measure I think it's your heart level or whatever, your blood pressure.
Yeah.
George goes in and he gives statements, and George is smooth as anything. So I don't think polygraph off, which makes me think he has no remorse. He's a little bit of a psychopath.
I forget how his stuff plays out. I really don't remember.
I remember his scene, and I won't say it because it's coming up in this season, I believe. I believe that's closer to the cliffhanger. But George is asked all the questions, and George doesn't fail the polygraph, which is crazy.
All right, so Gabby, she's having fantasies about John. As there's another gardener there, has like this big old beer gut. Um, she's still having like this fantasy of him, whatever. Um, she goes to watch John. He's cutting another person's lawn, of course, on Mysterio Lane, which, by the way, Jesse Metcalf was made as a guest appearance this season. He's not on it full time, so I guess he's not going to be on much longer. Um, Gabby goes to jail for her anniversary. For it's Carlos and her anniversary. He totally forgot. She's like, "What else are you doing in here? You're just sitting there. You have nothing to do. Like, why didn't you know our anniversary was today?" That John loved her, and she explains. She starts going through like sexcapades, like what she did with John, like what ways and all this stuff. Um, she gets home, and there's a scene with Matthew, the neighbor, Matthew Applewhite. He compliments her on her car. I don't know if that means anything in the future or what.
Aston Martin. He compliments her on her car, but it's because she says, "Thank you. My husband got it for our anniversary." So she's at the prison feeling like he didn't care. And she's like, "Well, forget it. He didn't buy me an anniversary gift. I'll buy one for him to me."
Of course, that's Gabby.
Yeah.
Oh, now that she's in charge of the finances, that makes sense. Gabby sees John go into this other woman's house, and she goes to look in the window, and they're like, I guess, banging. And she destroys this woman's flower beds out front. John goes to Gabby. He's like, "Oh, I'm in love with this other woman now." Like it was literally like the day before that he was saying how he was in love with Gabby. So she's thrown for a loop, and Gabby's like, "I was gonna give my whole life up for you. Like I don't know what I was thinking. Like
Yeah.
because clearly this boy's 18,
I remember she
and
said, she's like, a two-bedroom apartment didn't seem that claustrophobic. Like, she considered downsizing out of her mansion to a
for
two-bedroom.
this boy,
Yeah.
yeah." And she kind of snaps out of her fantasy finally. She almost gave up Carlos and all that stuff. Gabby visits Carlos and gives him a sincere apology for cheating on him. And Carlos says that's the best anniversary gift you could have given me. And at the end, we like, as Mary Alice is talking, we see Gabby jogging past John, which I feel like he's probably done now for a little bit if he's
I think
not involved with Danielle.
he waves to her, and she just keeps going.
Yeah,
She,
she just keeps going. So hit us with Susan and Mike.
so, Susan, the antics continue. Susan's outside of her house. She is looking towards Edie's house, and she sees a car there. Now, this is Carl's car. We saw Carl's car in an earlier episode. It's not moving. She's anxiously waiting. She looks at her watch. She looks at the car. Mike comes out and says, "Is everything okay?" And then she says, "Well, we have this agreement, Carl and I. He gets Julie every other weekend, and it's at 6 p.m. every other weekend. Well, maybe he's running late. Maybe they just forgot to call." He said, "No, he's always here. This is the agreement. I could have him taken off to jail if he breaks this," which I think is kind of crazy for Susan. But she goes, "It's 6:15, and I think she said maybe they're in some orgiastic something. She thinks they're having sex. So she storms up. She accuses them of this sexual act, whatever. They're having this orgy in their house, they're making love. So Mike goes with her, and you can actually hear some singing, and you're like, who's singing? And at first I thought it was Edie, and it was not Edie. She goes up to the window of the front door, and she looks in, and Mike is right behind her. They look in, and there is Edie on the couch with her broken leg or whatever. She's playing the guitar. Julie is singing, and I forget what Carl's doing, but they're singing, and Susan looks upset, and Mike goes, I guess it's not the orgy you were thinking it was. She leaves. Then we go to the next scene of Julie wants to sing at church. She tells Susan this. She says, Edie's going to accompany me in the guitar. And then Susan goes, why didn't you ask me? And she said, it's a family talent show. And you ask Edie, well, Mom, you're really not musical. And she goes, instrument. I play the piano. And she goes, Mom, that was in the 80s. Like, sense. So, she
I
kind
think
of
she said 70s first, and Susan corrects her. She's like, no, early 80s.
Early 80s. The next thing we know, we see Susan stopping by Betty's house. So I don't know if you talked about the scene with Betty, what happened here. I'll give a little hint. Susan stops by Betty's house, and she says, hey, you did such a great job at Bree's husband's funeral. Do you give piano lessons? And Betty Applewhite says, it's really not a good time. And she says, Susan, thank you so much. She said, I would really love lessons. She goes, it's not a good time. And she looks at Betty's blouse, and there's a little bit of red on the blouse.
So yeah, I'll stop you right there, and we'll talk about that. So Matthew wants to play some baseball or basketball or whatever. He just wants to get out of the house. Betty, I guess, doesn't really want him to go far because they don't want to stir anything up in the neighborhood as they're being shady. Betty says we got to keep a low profile. We don't really know the husband's name. She said it, but we're not sure. Virgil, I think it is, but we're not sure if that's his real name or if it was a made up name. But anyway, he gets out of the basement. Betty, him, and Matthew all have this struggle right before Susan shows up. Betty ends up knocking him out, and then she gets to the door and she has blood on her. But she says it's cherry pie or something she's making. But go on. That's all that happened with that.
Susan notices that. She says, oh, I'm baking a cherry pie. So we think, okay, well, Betty just turned down actually giving piano lessons. Next, we have
I think
Mike.
Matthew also says like we got to be nicer to the neighbors. Like
Yeah,
you keep being rude to people. I mean, that was just an awful time, though. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but
yeah,
whatever. Go
yeah.
on.
I'm relaxed and I dropped something, you know.
Right, right.
So we go to the next scene, and this is not Susan. This is Mike. Mike is walking over to someone's house with flowers. Whose house is it? It's Felicia. He sees Felicia. Remember, Felicia was took in Zach. Zach nearly beat Felicia to death. Felicia looks a mess when she enters the door. She thanks Mike for the flowers, and she said I'm going to Utah for a little while. And he said, "Can I ask why?" She said, "To recover." And basically, she talks about. She says, "I'm going to recover," and you see a look on her face. And she goes, "Have they caught Zach yet?" She interrupts him right away. No. Well, I don't think it's wise I stay in town. And she talks about how things have changed, and she doesn't feel comfortable around them anymore. But she knows the whole story because she's the one that basically told, hey, Monty, she's the one that basically told Mike what was going on about Deidre and the baby and everything else to let her in. So she said, did you let Paul go? And he said, yeah, I couldn't kill him. And then she's kind of saddened by it. Like she's upset because she knows Paul killed her sister.
Right.
She said, you should have killed Paul. Because eventually Zach will come back looking for his father. Even though he knows it's not his real father. That's the only life he's ever known is Paul Young and Mary Alice Young.
Like he doesn't know. I don't think Zach knows that Mike's his father, though.
Not yet. He doesn't know who Dietrich really was. He doesn't know
Right.
his father. So that scene ends. We go back to Susan. They show Susan playing the piano at Betty Applewhite's house. She's actually taking piano lessons. Betty tells Susan she's doing a great job. Tells her basically to take her foot off the pedal, and she goes, "No, I think it makes it sound professional and more professional." Betty says, "No, no, no, don't do that." And then you hear some sound in the background, some like boombox kind of deal. And Susan makes a comment. Matthew really likes to listen to his hip hop, like really loud. And she says, "Oh yes, he does it while he's doing some work down there in the basement. It drowns out washer or whatever."
The dryer, yeah.
And basically, you hear him blasting music, and he's strengthening the door because whoever's in the basement, the father, whoever it is chained in the basement or locked in the basement. He broke
Sloth.
the door, so they are making the door stronger. Matthew. So the piano lessons continue. Then you have Susan's talking to Edie and Julie. She thanks her for whatever, singing with Julie and everything else. She goes, but it's supposed to be a family thing. It's a family talent show. And well, we may one day be family. And that kind of like shocks Susan that Edie would say that. And then Susan basically puts her daughter, said, well, let's let Julie decide who it should be. Julie, being any kid, you're going to naturally choose your mother over someone else, your father's girlfriend, whatever. So she chooses her mother. Edie is kind of sad, tells her to leave. She takes her pitchfork back from Julie.
This is like a church talent show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a church talent show, which is the same. They go to the same church that Bree and Rex did. So we go to another scene of Susan and Betty outside. Carl stops by. They're talking, and Carl stops by angrily and says, "Hey, I have to talk to you. I have a bone to pick with you." And he's yelling at Susan. They're going back and forth. How could you kick Edie out of the talent show? Blah blah blah. And then she says, well, it's a family show. He said, one day we may be family. This may be one of Julie's family members. I might be in love with her.
Yeah.
They make some comments back and forth. He leaves. He storms off. Susan says to Betty, I'm sorry you had to witness that. Betty says, it's okay. We've all had our share of drag out, punch out, whatever, knockout family fights. So she makes this comment, and you think about it, Betty just had one. She just had one a little bit ago in the basement.
Yep.
And I think she even talked, I don't know if she talks about it with Matthew, but she mentions about her abuse in the past. I forget who she mentioned it to, but she talked to somebody.
The doctor.
Maybe it was
that was the doctor to get that drug to drug that dude.
Yeah, basically her husband was abusing her. So the next scene we go to is Julie and Susan in the church. Susan is at the piano. They're getting ready to start. Susan has a few moments. She sees Rex out in the pews with the camcorder sitting next to Edie. She freezes. She doesn't start.
Carl.
Oh, Carl. Who did I say? Rex?
Yeah. Rex is dead, damn it.
I know. God damn it, Tim. I don't
Trying
think
to bring
Phyllis.
him back to life.
I don't think Phyllis's memory's going. I think it's mine. So she looks out. Carl has a camcorder. Susan looks a little nervous, and she goes, "Hold on a moment." And after they didn't start, she walks out. She walks down the pews in the aisle. She talks to Edie, apologizes, and Carl's just sitting there watching it. And she says, "How convenient for you to apologize now." And then she says, "You should really be out there. I'm so sorry. I took this away from you. You could be family. All these things. Your relationship could go anywhere. It was wrong of me to kick you out." And Edie says, "Well, how convenient. I don't have my guitar with me." Susan goes to walk back up, and Edie goes, "But I do play the piano." So you see Edie. They introduce Julie again with her aunt Edie, and she goes to play, and Edie is horrible at the piano. She probably hasn't played since the 80s, but she played.
Yeah, right.
Julie had a much better singing voice, but you could tell Julie was nervous. So Susan sitting next to Carl as he's still recording this, he said, "You're just loving this." You kind of get that Susan was. She really doesn't mean to hurt them. She doesn't mean to embarrass Julie, but she kind of, she's kind of happy. And that's
As Carl's like recording it.
recording. So
I like that. Like he's like recording it and like he lowers it or whatever and she's
yeah,
like, "Yeah, I'm not," and she hires. She's like, "Yeah, I want this on film so I can watch Edie screw up over and over again."
yeah.
All right, so Lynette doesn't have too much in this one. Parker's first day of kindergarten. Where are these twins? We haven't seen the twins.
We haven't
Not
seen
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird, but we haven't seen them since I think the first episode of this season. So Lynette gets home. She has school supplies. Parker's first day at kindergarten is going to be like the next day. Tom says he's going to take them. Parker's not really happy about it. He like pouts or whatever, and he hands the book bag back. And she's like, "Fine, I'll see what I can do. I'll see what Nina says. Whatever." Lynette goes to work. This is funny because I use this excuse as a single male that doesn't have children. I say this at work all the time. I'm like, I actually feel Nina in this. So Lynette goes to work. She asks Nina if she can have the day off for the kindergarten, her first day off, or the first day of kindergarten for Parker. Nina says, like, what about the single people with no kids? What if they want to take out a matinee? Like, they have lives too. Like, they might want to do different things too. I always say that too. I'm like, I didn't choose to have children. That was your choice.
I say that too.
So I say that too, but it's the truth. So I think before this happened, she sees that guy Stu again with this video thing. He's like, "Oh, I'm setting up this video." It's basically Zoom before Zoom. They can do like a video conference online or whatever. So she comes up with an idea like, "Oh, I can maybe be there via video somehow." So Lynette is on video chat with Parker. I guess it's the following day. He started school. She gets called to the meeting. She pretty much like goes in. She's like, "Oh, I forgot something." Whatever. She goes back to Parker in the other room on the video chat. Then she has to go back in, and she's like, "Oh, I need to go to the bathroom." Nina's like, "No, you need 10 minutes in here. Like, knock it off. What are you doing?" Lynette sees that Nina put her like coffee down a certain way so it looks like it could tip over and starts banging the desk with like excitement of what she's talking about.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's do that. And then she does, and then Nina obviously looks at her like she's crazy. And then she like starts like goes from beneath the table because she's close to knocking it on her. So she ends up knocking the coffee or tea, whatever it is, onto Nina's lap, which obviously ends the meeting. So then she runs to Parker's, whatever, the video thing, and she gets to see his first day, whatever he's doing at school. And then the next scene, you see her just like, toward the end, I guess Mary Alice is saying something, and Lynette's at work, and that's when Gabby was jogging and all that stuff. So I think we're complete. So yeah, there's a pretty solid episodes. Again, I felt like Lynette and Gabby were pretty backburnered in these. But I guess it's like it's story building, and there's a lot to do with Susan, and then Felicia. I guess I forget if Felicia comes back because I know she does go for a little bit. I thought she returns at some point.
I think she does return because I think something happens to her as well. I don't recall, but
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like later in the season I vaguely remember something, but I'm not sure. All right, well, we'll wrap up this edition of Desperate Housewives season two. Subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you, Patreon subscribers. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate our free side as well. There's 750, I think, at this point. That's amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And join us next time